Okay, let's jump into Bootstrap. I was going to go into maybe doing some code for Bootstrap today, but I think maybe I'll push it to next week because we don't have enough time. An hour is never enough to explore all these things. So here's what we'll do today. Okay, we will. Hi guys. Hello. How are you? Yes. We'll just jump into Bootstrap basics, and at the end of the class, I will get you all to download PSD templates. They will have all the grids for the different breakpoints, and you can start designing a portfolio from there as a starting point. And then next week we will start exploring how to put it all together by hand. Okay? Okay, so the first thing you need to know about Bootstrap is the URL. So please go to this URL, bookmark it somewhere safe, memorize it by heart, because anytime we have any issues, anytime I am not even sure, I'll go to the URL, I'll look for the demo code that they have, read through the documentation, try and make sense, copy and paste until it works for me, and then I try and modify it. Okay, so go to the URL and save it into your bookmarks very safely. Getbootstrap.com. Okay, so just to be aware, if you're on the website already, the current version of Bootstrap is version 3.3, I think. They have a version 4 coming up, which is on top of the website. Just happily ignore it for now. So everything that we are doing for now is under Bootstrap 3, right? Bootstrap 4 is exciting. It's got lots of improvements, but it's not production ready yet, which means people won't really put it up on their own websites yet. It's still a technology release. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand about Bootstrap after the URL, right, is how it organizes itself. Bootstrap is broken into a 12-column grid. This is what we need to understand for all the different sizes. Bootstrap has 4 breakpoints. We'll come to that later on, but for all 4 breakpoints, it is broken up into a 12-grid system. Okay, so the 12-grid system means you can have 12 individual columns like this, or you can have 6 wider columns like that, you know what I mean? So they take up 2 columns each, so you have 6 of those. Or you have any combination of these things, right? So you can have 4 of 3 columns each. You can have, you know, fancy ones where it's 2, how many? 2 and 8. So the thing is, the number of columns you have on any given row of information needs to add up to 12. This 12th number is quite important. We'll come to it later on next week when we start coding for Bootstrap. Okay, so the 12-column grid, again, if y'all are using grids for whatever layouts you do for InDesign, Illustrator, 12 is a nice number to use, right? 16 is a bit overkill for me, because 12 you can get 3 columns, you can get 2 columns, you can't get 5, so that's a bit of a pain. But otherwise, a 12-column grid gives you enough flexibility to rearrange your work, right? So this is by far Bootstrap's biggest advantage and disadvantage, because if you want to go 5 columns, 5 equal columns, is going to be a bit hard to do it here. It's not impossible, but it's a bit hard, right? So if, a lot of times this is something that will end up restricting the way we design, which is not exactly good. So if there are 5-column layouts that you want to do, Bootstrap might not be the thing for you, or go look for a Bootstrap template that is a 5-column grid. So there are ways to make it work, okay? So this will help you do 2 columns, 3, let's see. There are a ton more variations and possibilities. So like the second from bottom is actually a 2-column layout, and then you've got 3 columns, 3 equal columns, 2 equal columns. You can do a lot of things, like you can get 6 equal columns, you can have unequal columns. So Bootstrap gives you the possibilities for different grids, and this is again something you need to understand before you go in and start designing a 5-column layout for a portfolio. Sorry, it's not going to work. So maybe we look at 4 or we look at 6, right? So some numbers won't work. 7-column layouts also, no, not really going to happen. Okay? 8-column layouts might actually work, because in a sense, 8-column layouts would be, you just take the middle 8 line, you just have the extreme right 2 columns blank. So that will be an 8-column layout. So there are workarounds for it, but this is what we have. Okay, so this is the Bootstrap grid. Number 12 is our magic number. Oh yeah, of course you can also do one entire long column of nothing but just one big column that will span 12 boxes, like 12 columns. Okay, so keep this in mind, 12 columns. Okay, the bootstrap breakpoints, this is a screenshot straight from their CSS file when you download it. So they have tablets 768 and up, 992 and up, 1200 and up, which means the fourth breakpoint is 767 and below lah, right? So it's not really explicitly specified, but these are their breakpoints. This is from their documentation again on getbootstrap.com. So roughly speaking, this thing is quite important to know, that they are container, which that means the size of your canvas, the size of your browser. Let's start from the extreme right, like 1170 is the size they look at for desktops, 970 for medium devices, and then tablets will be 750. Anything smaller than that, they go into none. That means it will take up the full width of the container that is there. So I will switch between browser and container interchangeably, because in my mind they are the one and the same, right? So another thing about Bootstrap is that for these sizes, it calls out, remember our 12 column grid here, right? It names these columns differently depending on the size of the container. So for each of them, you will see there is this fancy two letter thing that they have. LG on the extreme right, that's large. MD is medium, SM is small, XS is extra small. So when you're working in a very specific breakpoint and you are struggling with it, look for in the documentation anything they mention about XS. It means it is talking about the extra small size. SM is your small, MD is your medium, and LG is your large. So this is the nomenclature for Bootstrap when they start talking about the different breakpoints and different screen sizes. So this is very important. Okay, 12 grids, 12 columns in the grid. XS, SM, MD, and LG. So these things we will need them quite repeatedly next week when we start doing the coding. But for now, I think we will just start looking at your portfolio. Remember, there was 1 week where you had to do your print portfolio layout, and we also asked for a 750 pixel wide layout. You know where that 750 pixel came from? It's here. So what we were doing was we were getting you started on designing for a device size layout first, right? So that's 750 for tablets, maybe a tablet portrait. Yeah, portrait. I always get mixed up between portrait and landscape. So what I have now is on, if you go to Blackboard, you go to web, what is the folder called? You will see a folder on Blackboard under PDP. It's called PDP1617 web, week 12, and I have a bootstrap grid PSD, and just download that and unzip it. Okay, so once you unzip the PSD, you will see 4 individual Photoshop files inside that zip file. You will have 4 grids, 4 rough sizes that match up to the different sizes in Bootstrap. You have the XS grid, you have the SM, the MD, and the LG grid. So again, the only difference is that the size of the PSD will be different. And for, let's open up the XS here. I have the XS grid here. You will see when the size of the grid changes, also when the size of the container changes, right? So on an XS device, I can give you 12 columns, but they're going to be really narrow columns, right? On a MD, the medium-sized one, the columns are going to be significantly wider because of the amount of size the browser gives you, right? So that's where you got to start thinking about how your layouts will change from one size to another. You can have maybe a 4-column layout in MD size, right? So in a medium size, but 4 columns in XS is going to look very narrow. It's going to start, your boxes will start getting very wide. Okay, so that's when we might have to, for XS, you might have to design them a bit bigger. So let's look at some websites that were done with Bootstrap itself, and then we can start looking at how they designed a few things. Okay, so this side, these were all on the Bootstrap website itself. There are some links to websites that were built with Bootstrap, so you can just go in there, just have a look around on the kind of resizing the responsive breakpoints that they work at. So for example, this website, very grid-based. It starts with a big page right in the beginning, and then there's columns and columns and columns and boxes and below. So this is large size, presumably. So large size, they're using, from here, I'm guessing about 4 columns, right? So this is 4, this will be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So as we resize, that's when we start seeing what they do with the 4 columns. This is what Bootstrap will do. So every small size. See, the thing is that you will see weird resizing happening when we resize the browser. But for a user who is landing on the website, when they're not going to be resizing it, they're just going to see it rendered and ready. So it doesn't really, don't be upset too much if your layout starts getting a bit, starts looking a bit wobbly. So 4 columns here, as we go narrower, they still staying to 4, and then it changes into 2. I think this is at around MD, if I'm not wrong. So from 4 columns, from a large size, they, I'm guessing they tried 3 columns, maybe it was too much work, or it was too leche, or they just want to have 2 breakpoints. That's essentially what they might be doing, because you can have one for LG, one for medium, one for small, and one for extra small, or you can do one for medium that will also work for large, and then forget about large, right? So they have this one that's 4, then it comes down to 2, and then when it goes to extra small, it goes to 1. So that's their column layouts that they've done, right? So whatever work that was here, 4, 2, and 1, that was their pattern, that was their responsive patterns for building their site. So they figured out on extra small how many columns they're going to work with. So that's when the content stacks. When they go wider, they're like, okay, I'm going to give it 2 columns. Then after, the content will stack below each. And then when you go widest, it will be 4. So it doesn't always have to be very linear, right? Okay, let's look at another one. This one, the opening graphic, yes, I am lost for words. Right. So again, this you can also see how the graphic changes, right? So this thing is more than a single page, but as we grow narrower, you see how the sides get cut off, the edges. So they use one image for the large size, they use the same one up to a certain breakpoint, then they change it to a different one where the full width actually comes back. Because the thing about, the thing we need to realize is that on your screens, everything is kind of horizontal, right? Everything is portrait, landscape. But when you go into a mobile device, everything becomes portrait. From landscape, it becomes a portrait size already. So that's when you look at your XS and SM sizes, you might have to think of how you, let's say you have a graphic header that is very large for desktops and for large tablets. When you go into a smaller size, then you're like, hey, okay, I'm going to resize it to actually fit. So you might have to do maybe 2 versions of your images, 2 versions of your exports for your work, right? So next week we'll explore how you can cheat with just one size and make it work for all, right? But usually the cheating will involve just 1 column or 2 column layouts. So in order for it to work optimally across sizes, you might have to prepare more than 1 set of images for your work. Okay, so again, the rest of the content, I'll leave it to you all to explore yourself, because you can see quite clear what they do from the large. When the layout changes, then you can see what they do to change it. Like for example, the graphic here is actually quite prominent on the large size ones. When you go beyond a smaller size, then it becomes very tiny because this image gets shortened out, right? So one thing will affect a lot of other things. So again, we designed for Bootstrap with our grids that you have. Work on at least 2 sizes. I would recommend maybe the extra small size as one, the XS size, and maybe work on the MD or SM sizes. Just do your layout, see how it will look like when it's wide, and then how it looks like when it's narrower, and then we will start building it from mobile up next week onwards. Okay. So for this week, again, go back to your template. look at your layouts. Use all 4 of the PSD grids if you want. Go ahead if you want to design for all 4 sizes. Whether you eventually want to build for all 4 is another thing. I mean, we can choose to build 1 or 2 at a time. So maybe design for all 4, but at least a minimum of 2 sizes, okay? And I would recommend XS, the extra small grid, as one of the sizes. So get that into your assignment template for this week, and let's submit it as, when do we submit it usually? By today, right? By end of today? Yeah, by end of today. Let's submit your layouts by end of today for your grids. Okay, so that's it for now. Then next week, please come armed with Sublime and an open mind, where we will try and play with Bootstrap and see how we can code. Essentially, whatever that you design is what you design, but Bootstrap is literally a scaffolding. It's a little holder for you to put stuff in and for it to change the dimensions as your screen gets smaller. So Bootstrap is not going to design the website for you, okay? So it's literally just a skeleton for you to hang your stuff on, and if the skeleton gets smaller, how do you adjust your work? So that's all Bootstrap is. I'm not over-promising much, okay? So let's work on the layouts. So remember, minimum 2 sizes, 2 breakpoints that you design in your Photoshop grid. All right, thank you. That's all for today.